figurine for this guy. 1 second. Rising before you is one of the Dragon Lord's most loyal undead soldiers. It's Rivula.
Tiny Tina has always been one of the more popular side characters in the Borderlands franchise. Having received a previous DLC campaign, Gearbox Software has now graced the 13-year-old explosions expert with her own game. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a side story to the mainline Borderlands series that keeps the majority of the gameplay intact while blending fantasy RPG elements to what arguably creates a better experience than previous Borderlands games. Players embark on Tiny Tina's tabletop game that is basically Dungeons & Dragons, and she is the Dungeon Master. The game is taken over by the Dragon Lord, who is voiced by Will Arnett, and chaos ensues. You play as the Fate Maker, and are credited as being the noob to the group. You are joined by 2 other players to the game, Valentine, who is actually voiced by Andy Samberg, and Freda, who is voiced by Wanda Sykes. The overall chemistry of the trio provides some funny moments and an improvement to the humor from Borderlands 3. Rather than having a set character tied to a player class, like previous Borderlands games, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands focuses on customization, much like a tabletop game. This means the game offers 6 different classes with the ability to combine multiple classes as the game progresses. Mixing and matching different skill trees allows for many varied builds and a ton of replayability with the game. Some examples of the classes are seen here, such as somebody that has Thor's hammer, and then a mage. A lot of different things that you wouldn't normally see in a Borderlands game. Rather than just getting paint schemes, you will actually customize characters, and you can also edit paint schemes. But a lot of depth is here as compared to previous Borderlands titles. So a lot of what you will actually unlock during gameplay in terms of loot are customization options. There are a few key updates to the game that freshen up the Borderlands experience. One of these is the ability to cast spells. There are varied spells that can be cast around the player, fired once or multiple times, or have an area clearing attack. There are no grenades in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and the team also added rains and charms for other attribute boosts. You didn't expect the typical loot drops, but some guns are different, such as replacing pistols with crossbows. A lot of the customizations that you do unlock, you won't actually be able to see them in play because the game's in first person, just basically in the menu screen. Rather than travel from planet to planet, transporting to different areas is done through an actual tabletop setup known as the Overworld. You navigate this map much like you would a classic RPG with random encounters that pop up. There are also dungeons, and these are basically just small areas where you clear out enemies and get rewards at the end. It's a really good way to grind to level up the character. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands will also offer crossplay across all platforms, no matter the generation of console. Cooperative and co-opetition return, and the online experience ran fine during the pre-launch period. There were disconnect errors when doing single player, but I attribute that to the pre-launch period, but actual cooperative play with others worked just fine. The visuals on PC are basically the same as Borderlands 3, which means it's open to lower-end hardware, but taxing when the effects are cranked up to Ultra. Playing the game at 4K resolution at Ultra on an RTX 3080, the frame rate would jump everywhere, peaking in the 70s, but would actually bomb into the 30s in certain situations. There is a benchmark mode to get an idea of what to expect, but there's a lot of different action going on at different times with a lot of effects on screen, that there's a lot of variables out there that's going to determine your performance. There's no DLSS or ray tracing options either, so there's not like a boost in visuals or anything to really help with performance. But there is a Fidelity FX sharpening option to help with lower end systems. In closing, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is either the perfect shake-up for the Borderlands series or the best Borderlands game to date. This would really come down to someone being a specific hardcore fan of the mainline games versus someone wanting something different with the series. The setting isn't so mundane here, and the customization options add quite a bit to the game. Spells are awesome to use, and melee combat plays a bigger role here, and you'll actually unlock better weapons to use in melee going forward. The comedy's improved in comparison to Borderlands 3, and the overall experience makes me think that Gearbox used this side story to try some new things. Everything ended up working out, and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a fantastic game to play. Head over to Hardcore Gamer for the full written review, and like and subscribe.